2024 was actually a good year for us. It was a good year. Our investments has grown by 18.8 billion in 2024. The net asset value, which is in the middle area, net asset value increased to 103.6 billion. Our total portfolio size, which is our realizable asset value, which is one on the left, is 151.3 billion. So if you want to say, what's the size of our fund? Well, it's 151.3 billion. And the bulk of that, look on the right here, is basically in our investment portfolio. We call it investment portfolio. That's the portfolio where we expect a commercial return. There are other investments that we make where it's developmental assets that are impact as well as special situations, mainly in our airline. And that's longer term, 6-year rolling. This is when we started to look at our asset allocation in a more programmatic way since 2019. So since then, our 6-year rolling NAV TWRR is 6.2%. We set ourselves a target, a long-term target of CPI plus 3%, which translates to about 4.3%, by the way, 4.6%. And we're above that. So last year is a recovery of, our portfolio, which is 24.6% return, 6.2% on a rolling basis. Now, what is actually delivering this set of results? And here we look at how we allocate our assets. Diversified portfolio. Now, we look at the profits. Here's our profits. Our profit for the year is 5.1 billion, right, which is actually a large number. And that came from a steady income from dividends. We also maintained a very active and disciplined monetization strategy, capitalizing on favorable markets. And we also had some value in Johor. It's one opportunity. They bought a controlling stake in Nor, which is a grid in the northern area. And they also recently signed, this is in 2025 of course, they recently signed with a number of industrial parks to purchase renewable energy from them under the CRESS program. And Tenaga also has done that with bridge data centers. On the grid, obviously Tenaga has a lot to do to accelerate the grid improvement to cater for renewable energy aging, where the birth replacement rates in my country is actually dropping, meaning to say that the productive workforce could actually be reducing. So that's something that we see not just in Malaysia, but in multiple countries. Deglobalization, of course, you can see this in the news. With geopolitics, people are looking after their own a lot more. Climate change, we all know of, and AI is a technology which is really, really changing the landscape of how we do things going forward. Those are the long-term trends. Short term, what we see, of course, the immediate thing that we see is US. The US policies has a big impact on the rest of the world. With Trump coming in, you can hear his policies of low energy, low taxes, and also favoring the domestic businesses. It's actually quite inflationary, meaning to say that our view is we're likely to see rates higher for longer, given the policies that they have, which also means that we're going to see higher, stronger dollar going forward relative to the other world currencies. So it's not going to be easy, and because of that, we do see a more volatile environment. He is making a lot of policy changes with respect to tariffs and dealing with trade in other countries, and that too raises geopolitical tension as well as trade fragmentation. That's the environment that we see going forward. Not easy. Having said that, I think if you look at Malaysia as a country, a number of things which actually is favorable for us. While we see it does have an impact on China. China makes up 14% of our exports, so it does impact us. But US makes up 12% of our exports, so that is also something. So we're actually pretty balanced as a nation when it comes to both. The other thing is we see a lot of investments, not just foreign direct investments, which are happening, not just being committed, but actually happening. But you also have domestic investments. You'll see more of the funds playing a role for domestic investments as well. And at the same time, consumption is resilient. So you do have something still strong going for us. And what we do need to do is to focus on the longer term productivity and innovation in order for us to basically benefit from this. Being in the middle is a bit scary because you have the two big giants, the bald eagle and the dragon, so to speak, fighting, and we're Kacil, right? So being in the middle, but we're Kacil, we play smart, right? So that's something that we have to do carefully. And our strategy going forward is that. Our strategy going forward is, first, is on Malaysia. We have to drive the value creation for Malaysia. I've already set up our Malaysia strategy. We will continue to diversify and strengthen that global portfolio because diversification works. Sometimes Some markets are not so great, but we actually improve in others. That actually is actually quite good for us. So we will continue to do that. Data impact is crucial for the country, and we want to be more effective in what we do. Sustainability is a way forward. We want to look at how we can accelerate decarbonization and sustainable growth. And lastly, we want to make sure that we are inclusive and don't leave people behind. And this is where we focus on the diachipta component of community building, which is building capacity and vibrant communities. It does include an exceptional item, and this relates to the monetization of our plus bonds, which we did as one-off thing. I think that was about 1.8 billion. So if you normalize it, actually, operationally, it is actually a good year for us. This one. The other thing is MHB, right? Who will be in the driving seat? We already have somebody in the driving seat, which is Dato Zahir. And by the way, you have to look at the CV, why who he is, ex-Khazanah CFO, was etc. Okay, so you have something there. And in terms of the professionals going forward, I think, to be honest with you, it's way too early. It's way too early to even look at that question. I think you have a lot of good people within the airport itself. We have to look at them, we have to evaluate them, we have to look at what we need to do also. So I think it's a bit early to even think about that. But I think one thing that we would want to know is, what we would want to do is, we do have these objectives in mind to make sure that we get the connectivity, right? We have the customer experience, right? We make sure that we have the right people in the job. Political appointments. Well, thankfully, you'll notice that even today, as a listed company, there are no political appointments on the board. So that's something which had changed, actually, for more than a year. So that's something that you see being consistent. So it's not new. Medical inflation. Actually, you know what? Medical inflation is something which is not just unique to Malaysia. It is something which is actually a global phenomenon. And a regional phenomenon as well. I think Malaysia tends to be from a lower base, perhaps, but you do see that. And I think the other thing that you do see is there's the public healthcare system, and of course, the private healthcare system. And in Malaysia's case, the public healthcare system is quite constrained. I think we need more capacity in the public healthcare system. Now, for the private healthcare system, of course, insurance companies have responded, and they've come up with policies about the capital premiums to help people. And the private hospitals would also want to see how they can help as well. So, for example, how can they change operations, have more generic drugs instead of innovative drugs, for example, have more treatment options where perhaps there could be a local anesthetic versus a general anesthetic option, for example. And also speak to the insurance companies in terms of how the hospitals would help them. Now, IHH per se, to be honest with you, there are public listed companies, you should ask them in terms of the impact and what to do. But one thing I would say is, as a shareholder, is that their revenues are quite diversified. It's coming in from 10 countries altogether. And Malaysia makes up about 20%. Okay? And not all of them relate to insurance as well. So in terms of the impact, just by doing the maths, it seems quite manageable. But I would recommend that you ask IHH that question directly.